Thanks everybody for coming today. I guess the first question everyone's asking is why pollination projects? We've got 3 being talked about today. I think we're all aware, particularly those involved in the agricultural industry, how much we rely on honeybees and particularly the feral honeybee to pollinate our food crops. You're probably also aware that there's a significant threat to honeybees worldwide. One of those major threats is from varroa mite. So Australia is one of the only countries in the world that doesn't actually have varroa. Unfortunately, most experts agree it's just a matter of time until we do. So when that happens, it's going to, I heard very recently that a prediction of all the feral honeybees, and that's the bees that live in tree hollows and so on, which is where we get most of our pollination services from, that they will, within 4 years, 95% of them will be gone. That's going to really push up pollination services costs, the managed bees, which will fare much better than the feral honeybees in that situation. So that's why there's quite a buzz going on around pollination with projects at the moment. I'm just going to give a brief outline of a project that I'm managing called Managing Vegetation on Farm, Targeting Pollination and Farm Resilience. So the project's been funded from 2018 to 23, so we're 1 year in, and it's funded by the Australian Government's National Landcare Program. The aim of the project, as you can see, is to protect remnant vegetation or revegetate parts of farms for production reasons. Normally when we're revegetating on land in the land care business, it's usually about biodiversity. Of course, we will get biodiversity outcomes, but the focus of this project is on production. And there's lots of benefits, production benefits for on-farm vegetation. Of course, it increases pollinators and beneficial insects. It reduces wind and water erosion. It also reduces nutrient runoff into creeks and so on. It reduces salinity, if that's an issue for you. And it also increases farm soil carbon. We're also hoping that with an increased awareness of the role of some of our beneficial insects, there may be a reduction in pesticide use, or at least the way it's applied. So the first year began in 2018 and we only had 1 year contract at that stage. We started work with 2 landholders. One is in the Boscobel region near Kojonup, and he's a canola grower, and the other one is an orchardist, a mixed orchard in Balinga. So what we achieved the first year is lots of monitoring for pollinators. We monitored for insects, birds, but also mammals that year on both those sites. We also produced some site implementation plans, and that was done in consultation with the landowner to manage the project, identify where works would occur and so on. One of the most valuable things that we also had produced that year were the flowering calendars. And these were produced for both areas that we're working in. And this is a screenshot from one of the calendars, but basically it shows all the native vegetation that occurs in that particular area, where it may grow in the landscape, what kind of soil type, that kind of thing. But this bit over here is of great interest to us because that indicates when that particular plant should be flowering. And that's what's of interest to us because we use these to develop our revegetation species for our sites so that we always have food and shelter for our pollinators. In 2019, the project was extended for 4 years. So we took on 4 more sites, 2 more canola growers and 2 more orchardists. And we decided to go for avocado growers because we were aware that pollination is quite complex when it comes to avocados, as I'm sure you're all aware of. So again, we are monitoring these sites. The original sites that we had, the 2 sites, they receive more intensive monitoring. They are monitored every year for bird and insect surveys on 2 occasions, particularly when the target crop's flowering. And the new sites were monitored last year, again, while the target crops were flowering, and they'll be monitored again towards the end of the project. So we've got a baseline and then we see what happens as a result of our work. Again, we had site implementation plans drawn up for those new landholders' properties. And of course, on-ground works have started. So that includes, you know, fencing of remnant vegetation and re-veg areas, site preparation, and we actually have plants in the ground now, which is fantastic. Another thing that we're doing is yield counts. We did those last year. We did one on canola and one in an orchard, just to see what yield came off that year, and then that will be compared the year before the project finishes. We also did some industry surveys, which were really, really interesting to me, and the avocado industry was incredibly generous in participating in that survey last year, right when you were harvesting. So I appreciate any of you people that participated in that. But the idea of the surveys with the various industries that we're working in is to look at the knowledge and attitudes to pollination and integrated pest management, remnant vegetation and revegetation, and farm resilience. So the 3 areas that we're working in. The interesting thing, some really interesting things came out of it. So for the avocado survey, most people thought the key pollinator was the honeybee, but the hoverfly and flies generally came up as important. This one really surprised me, that only 10% bring in hives to their orchard. 70% said they practiced IPM. So that's pretty impressive. That's integrated pest management, sorry, for those that aren't familiar with that acronym. And that not one person thought vegetation on their farm was detrimental to their production. So it's going to be really interesting how that compares with the same survey conducted in 2022. The other thing that we do associated with the project is run field days and events, just like this one. And of course, it's quite interesting to do one online for the first time. It has its advantages, of course. We have lots of people joining in from all over the country. I just thought I'd put this slide up, which is when we did our insect monitoring last year in avocados. This is all the insects we caught over a 24-hour period. The majority of insects in those orchards, of course, this is in the southwest of Western Australia, during flowering, the majority was midges. Overwhelmingly, look at these figures, you know, 163, 214. But the other interesting thing is the variety of insects. So we've got in here, you know, various flies, native bees, mosquitoes, beetles, flying ants, cabbage white butterfly, you know, various moths, wasps, incredible variety of insects that were in the orchards last year. This is my last slide. I just wanted to put up that a bit of a map so you get a sense of what we're doing. And this is the long-term orchard site that we have in Balingar. And this is just a portion of that whole property. But this is the area in purple where we are revegetating. Well, all that should be in this year by now. This is where I conduct my insect surveys that transect there, and this is where the yield data came from. So we'll do that again in 2022. So at the end of the project in 2023, as a result of the targeted revegetation we've done, we should have an idea whether that's had a change. We'll find a change in insect and bird numbers, whether there's a change in yields, and through the extension that we do with the project, whether attitudes have changed at all.